A sharp slap rang out through the quiet cabin as flight attendant Claire Weston's palm met the cheek of Emily Hayes, a pregnant passenger in the first-class section. The entire plane went silent in shock. Moments before, Claire had ordered Emily to leave her seat, convinced that a woman who looked like her couldn't possibly belong in the premium cabin. Little did Claire know, the woman she had just humiliated was married to the owner of the airline. "You have no idea what you've done," Emily whispered, her voice calm, unfazed as she retrieved her phone. The Newsline network had covered countless stories of poor decisions, but few compared to this clash of ignorance and power. Without raising her voice or causing a scene, Emily sent a quick text to her husband, Alex, while Claire stood there adjusting her uniform, unaware that her career was about to collapse. "Ms. Weston, report to the cockpit immediately." The intercom suddenly crackled, sending a chill down Claire's spine. Passengers exchanged knowing glances, realizing the gravity of the moment. In the cockpit, Captain Thompson's face darkened as he held the phone from the executive office. "We've just received a direct complaint. A first-class passenger was assaulted by a flight attendant. Care to explain yourself?" "Wasn't anything serious," Claire defended herself. She refused to move from her seat. "I handled it." "You handled it by physically touching a passenger," came the sharp voice of Mr. Barnes, a senior company official. "Did you even check her seat assignment?" The truth hit Claire hard. She hadn't checked. She had assumed. "You moved Emily Hayes from her seat?" Mr. Barnes pressed. "Do you have any idea who her husband is?" Claire hesitated. "No," she whispered, dread creeping up her spine. Captain Thompson's voice struck like a hammer. "Her husband is Alex Hayes. He owns this airline." The blood drained from Claire's face. "You just laid hands on the wife of the man who owns this company," Mr. Barnes said with chilling calmness. "And you did it in front of a full first-class cabin." As Claire emerged from the cockpit, her hands trembling, the air around her felt different. Whispers and sidelong glances filled the space. Emily remained in her seat, calmly tapping on her phone, her posture unshaken. Claire's stomach churned. "Ms. Hayes," Claire began, her voice stiff. "There's been a misunderstanding." Emily glanced up, her eyes calm but intense. "A misunderstanding?" "Yes. I'd like to personally escort you back to your assigned seat," Claire said, forcing a smile. Emily's gaze narrowed. "So, you're saying it was a mistake?" "Yes, a mistake," Claire nodded. "An error in seating." Emily studied Claire's face, her expression unchanging. "You never checked my ticket. You didn't consult the seating chart. You saw me and decided I didn't belong here. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice." A businessman nearby cleared his throat. Maybe it would help if she actually apologized. Murmurs of agreement spread across the cabin. "Apologize," Emily said, her voice firm. Claire's pride fought back, but the pressure was undeniable. She took a breath, her voice strained. "I'm sorry, Ms. Hayes. I misjudged you, and I shouldn't have treated you that way." As Emily moved down the aisle toward her seat, the passengers who had been silent during her ordeal now watched her with a quiet respect. The power dynamic had shifted without a single word of arrogance from Emily. Claire followed her, shoulders slumped. When they arrived at Emily's seat, Claire's voice was almost a whisper. "If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." Emily turned her gaze slowly, her eyes piercing. "You didn't offer me anything before. No water, no check-in. But now, suddenly you're offering?" Claire's face flushed. "That wasn't my intention." "No. Then what was your intention?" Emily asked, her tone steady and calm. Claire had no response. After a long silence, Emily's voice softened. "I'll have a sparkling water." When Claire returned with the drink, her hands were shaky. "Oh, and by the way," Emily added, "I texted my husband about you." Claire froze, her stomach tightening. "He wasn't pleased." "I can imagine," Claire managed to say. "You don't understand how much trouble you're in," Emily said, her words carrying weight. "In about 30 minutes, you'll regret this even more." As the plane prepared to land, no one moved when the seatbelt sign was turned off. A uniformed security guard appeared at the front of the cabin, making his way toward Claire. "Ms. Weston," he said, "please come with us." "Is something wrong?" Claire asked, her voice trembling. "We have reports of an incident involving the removal of a first-class passenger. Mr. Hayes has requested a full investigation." None of the passengers spoke up in her defense as she was escorted off the plane. In the terminal, the harsh overhead lights felt like a spotlight on her, and whispers followed her every step. "That's her, isn't it?" "Yeah, that's the one who got into trouble. I heard she slapped someone in first class." Two men in suits waited for her. Senior airline executives, Derek Hall and Steve Lawson, led her to a conference room. "You know why you're here, right?" Derek asked after a long pause, studying her intently. Claire straightened up, trying to regain some dignity. "I understand there was a complaint about a seating issue." "A seating issue?" Steve Lawson repeated with disbelief. "You physically assaulted a passenger, didn't check her ticket, and caused a public scene. Is that really just a seating issue?" "It was a misunderstanding," Claire repeated, her voice smaller now. "The only misunderstanding here is you thinking there's any way to fix this," Derek said, his voice cold. "You're suspended without pay pending review." "I've worked for this airline for 10 years, Claire protested. "If this were anyone else, you'd already be fired. The only reason you haven't been let go yet is because Mr. Hayes believes in accountability," Steve said. "If you admit what you did and take full responsibility, there may be a chance for redemption. But that's a big if." As Claire was led through the back corridors of the airport, a voice called out to her. "Mrs. Hayes." Claire turned to see Emily, now joined by Alex, standing near the VIP lounge. Emily's hand rested on her pregnant belly, while Alex, tall and confident, stood by her side. For the first time, Claire felt genuine fear. Alex's voice was calm but firm. "She's done." Claire said nothing. She had wronged a woman who simply wanted to sit in the seat she had rightfully paid for. Claire had assumed she didn't belong there, and now her future was slipping away. That evening, Claire sat in her car, her phone buzzing with notifications. Flight attendant fired after assaulting pregnant passenger in first class. Discrimination in first class. Passenger speaks out after humiliation. The reality hit. She wasn't just losing her job, but her entire career. Her phone buzzed again, an email from Alex Hayes. Subject, accountability. "Claire, I won't repeat what's been said. If you want to apologize to my wife, I'll make sure she gets it. This apology is for her, not for me or your career. A. Hayes." Claire stared at the email, then typed slowly. "I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I didn't check your ticket. I assumed and made a mistake. It won't happen again." Minutes later, Emily replied, "I'm not angry anymore. This isn't just about me. It's about those who never get justice. I'm not interested in whether you're sorry, but whether you change. I accept your apology, but I believe in growth." That night, Claire reached out to Jessica Mills, a colleague who had always pushed for better inclusivity. "Jessica, I need your help." "Claire, what's going on?" "I need to do better. Are you ready to listen?" "Yes," Claire said, her voice shaking. "I think I am." 6 months later, Claire spoke at an industry conference, now in business attire, her voice steady. "The hardest lesson wasn't losing my job. It was realizing I'd spent 10 years judging people by how they looked, not their ticket." In the third row, Jessica nodded, proud of the woman she had helped mentor. Meanwhile, Emily, now in a new role at the airline, worked on a program to ensure no traveler faced what she had endured. For Claire, the true test wasn't her apology. It was her actions afterward. She became a voice for change, advocating for accountability. Claire ended her speech with confidence. It's not about punishment. It's about growth. That evening, Alex received a message from Claire titled "What I Learned." He watched it with Emily, then asked, "Do you think she's changed?" Emily placed her hand on their newborn daughter's head. "It's not about whether she's changed," she replied. "It's about whether we all do."